Well, I was diagnosed in August of 2000, and I always tell people I was kind of on watch for it. My mom is a breast cancer survivor. She was diagnosed in 1996. Obviously, that put me at a higher risk, and I had had a few problems with some cysts and things in the past, so I was very diligent about my mammograms and self-breast exams. So when I was diagnosed, I can't say that it was a complete surprise. Wasn't really what I wanted to hear, but what was surprising were the weeks to follow when I was diagnosed with a late stage 3 breast cancer. That's not what I expected, having been so diligent with my exams in the past. So getting that diagnosis of a very aggressive late stage cancer was probably the most surprising thing for me. I guess probably when we all hear that, as they say, the big C word, you think about a possibility of dying, and that's a little fearful. But really, the fear wasn't about myself, it was about my daughter. At the time, I was a single mom, and my daughter was a junior in college, and we had a very close bond, and I just knew what that would do to her if I wasn't, to make it, what it would do to her college graduation, how her wedding day would be affected by that, how the birth of her first child, not having mom there. So the fear really wasn't about me as much as it would, how it would affect my loved ones. And obviously my very own mother, having had breast cancer and being a mom myself, knowing that if my daughter had a life-threatening disease, how I would be affected and, and just be distraught. So I also feared for my own mom, and her emotions. So it really wasn't about me. It was more about my loved ones. I would say, as I've heard many women say in the past, it's kind of a combination. I always say it was the 3 F's, first my faith and my family and my friends. And having a strong faith, you feel, as I felt at that time, it's really not in my hands. So what I need to do is just be positive and go through my treatments and do the best I can. My family, they were amazing. Again, with my mom having been a survivor, she understood my emotions and what I was going through. She was at every doctor's appointment, every treatment, every CAT scan and every test that they did. My mom was right there. At the time, I was seriously dating someone who is now my husband, and he was my pillar of strength. He never ever talked about it being anything but you will beat this. I mean, there was no talk about if. It was you are going to beat this, and when you do, then we're going to get married. And then obviously my daughter, she was just my biggest cheerleader. She called me every day. She was home on what weekends she could be from college, and just when my hair was falling out, it was over Labor Day weekend, and I was in the shower, and as many women will tell you, I went like this, and all of a sudden my hands were just full of hair, and I started to cry, and my daughter come in, and she was just, "It's okay, Mom," and she took a comb, and she just kept combing my hair, and it was all falling out, and it was like, "It's okay, Mom, you really look pretty with no hair." But actually, when they first told me, that I had cancer, again, I wasn't that frightened because I had been so diligent that I thought, well, okay, I have cancer, but it has to be an early cancer. And so we've caught it, and my outcome is good. Probably the fear came a few weeks later when I was given that horrible news of the late stage cancer. But again, it was brief. It was very brief. I think I was a pretty good person before, but as most people will tell you, you become a better person. And I know no one ever understands the comments that I've heard so many cancer survivors, including myself, say, but cancer ended up being a good thing. It made me slow down a little bit. It has made me appreciate everyone in my life. I absolutely thank God every day when I get up for the beautiful day. I look at the blue sky now. I look at the gorgeous leaves. You know, my husband and I celebrated our 6th anniversary last weekend, and we went to Lake Michigan, and I just stood there and just looked at the beauty, you know, and I don't think I ever saw that before. I don't think I took time. I was so busy with life like most of us are. And so I think it's just made me a calmer person, a more appreciative person, and I truly love my family and friends and appreciate every day that I have with them. I've always said all my life that my mom is the strongest woman I've ever met, and I always admired her strength, and now it really does my heart good to know that I've inherited some of that. I don't think prior to what I went through I would have ever thought that I was near the person that my mom is, with her strength and ability to conquer things in her past, and now I just feel like I am strong like my mom. She's still my hero, and I hope that I can pass this on to my daughter and let her know that no matter what's thrown, you know, in your path in life, little roadblocks, just, you know, persevere. You're a strong person and you can do it. Had there been a site like this when I was diagnosed, and there was not, I know that because I was on the internet like most people trying to read about this disease. If I was a woman today that was diagnosed and I knew that I had a site like Living Conversations to log on to, and I would look at these stories, I would feel hope. I'm sure out of all the women's stories that are on this site, there are women that have been diagnosed with very early stages of cancer, and then women that have been diagnosed with very late stages of cancer. And the one thing that we all are is we are survivors, and we're here to tell our stories. And I think that's what I wanted to hear most when I was diagnosed. Was I didn't want to hear any horror stories about how bad the treatment was and all that, because I knew I was in for a pretty rough road because I had a very aggressive cancer and they were going to treat me accordingly. But what I wanted to hear from were survivors. I wanted to meet that person that said, I'm a 5-year survivor and a 10-year survivor and a 15-year survivor. You know, when I heard those stories, they gave me stories of hope, and that maybe someday I would be that person that someone newly diagnosed could look up to and say, hey, she made it, so can I.